Hey, this is Ethan. The evening air feels thick, though the apartment is cool. It's a quiet night, the kind I've grown to appreciate over the past 2 months of marriage. Lily hums softly from the bathroom. Steam curls out through the cracked door, and the scent of her lavender shampoo filters into the living room. I sit on the couch, scrolling through an endless feed of nothing on my phone, waiting for her to finish so we can pick a movie. Her phone sits abandoned on the counter, screen glowing with a notification. The name, Ryan, flashes briefly before the screen darkens again. Ryan. I've heard the name before, her ex from college. The one who had apparently left her heartbroken. She told me it ended badly, and I hadn't pushed for details. We all have a past, right? The phone buzzes again, a quiet little sound, almost apologetic. I tell myself to ignore it, to respect her privacy. But my stomach twists, and before I know it, I'm standing in front of the counter. The screen lights up as I touch it, and there's the message. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Last night was amazing. For a moment, I don't breathe. My thumb hovers over the screen before it betrays me, unlocking her phone with ease. She never changed the passcode after we got married. She told me she had nothing to hide. The messages are all there. Pages of them, stretching back weeks. Plans to meet, inside jokes, little reminders of things they'd shared before I came into the picture. Explicit details of nights I thought she'd been out with friends. My hand trembles as I scroll, each new message a punch to the gut. There's no doubt about it. She's been seeing Ryan behind my back. Not once, not twice. Over and over, even before we stood in front of our families and said, I do. I hear the water stop. The squeak of the faucet turning off. My heart pounds so hard it's a wonder she doesn't hear it. I put the phone down as footsteps pad into the hallway. She appears in the doorway, towel wrapped around her hair, face glowing from the steam. Hey, she says, smiling. What are we watching? Her voice feels distant, like it's coming from another room. I stare at her, 1,000 thoughts crashing into each other. How long has she been lying to me? Was she laughing at me while I dreamed of our future? She tilts her head. Ethan? What's wrong? I pick up her phone, holding it out like evidence in a trial. Her smile falters. Who's Ryan? My voice doesn't shake. I don't recognize the cold edge in it. Her eyes dart to the phone. For a split second, something flickers across her face. Shock? Annoyance? Before she masks it with indifference. She walks past me, her damp feet leaving faint prints on the hardwood. Are you seriously going through my phone now? She says, grabbing a blanket from the couch. Don't deflect. I saw everything. I snap. How long has this been going on? She shrugs, tossing the blanket onto the couch. Does it matter? The casual tone knocks the wind out of me. Of course, it matters. We're married, Lily. 2 months married, and you've been. Stop, she interrupts, holding up a hand. Ethan, don't make this more dramatic than it is. You'll be fine. Fine. The word burns in my throat. So what? You've been planning this? Keeping me as some backup while you sneak around with him? She doesn't answer right away, and the silence confirms everything. She crosses her arms, eyes sharp now. I didn't plan this, okay? But it happened. Ryan and I, we have history. I thought I could move on, but I can't. And honestly? She laughs bitterly. This marriage was a mistake. I stare at her, my body numb and cold. A mistake? Yes, she says, no hesitation. I shouldn't have gone through with it. I don't love you the way you deserve, Ethan. I was stupid to think I could. Her words crash over me like a wave, pulling me under. I thought I'd prepared myself for the worst, but nothing could have braced me for this, a clean, precise cut. I grab my keys from the counter. I can't stay here, not another minute. She doesn't try to stop me. As I leave, she calls out, Ethan, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder? My mind spins as I walk to the car. I slam the door shut behind me, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. I sit there for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on me. 2 months. That's all it took for the life I'd envisioned to crumble. I start the car and drive, my hands steady but my chest hollow. The road stretches ahead, dark and empty, mirroring how I feel inside. This isn't the end I thought I'd face, but it's the one I have now. 3 days later, I'm sitting in my parents' guest room, staring at the ceiling. It's late, but sleep has been a stranger since that night. The room smells faintly of lavender, my mom's idea of calming me down, but it doesn't help. Nothing does. The first night I spent here, she knocked softly on the door, a plate of cookies in hand, like I was a kid who'd had a bad day at school. Dad sat across the room, silently watching the game on TV, his way of giving me space. They didn't ask questions. They didn't push. They just let me exist in the quiet, a kindness I hadn't realized I needed. I haven't told them everything yet. I've only managed to say the words. Lily cheated. Their faces twisted in ways I've never seen before, shock, anger, pity, but they didn't press me for details. Part of me wonders if they already suspected something was wrong. Maybe they saw the cracks in Lily's smile or noticed the way she avoided eye contact during Sunday dinners. On the floor beside me, my phone buzzes. The screen lights up with another notification from her. We need to talk. It's the 5th message since I walked out, and they've all gone unanswered. Each one digs into my chest, reopening the wound she left behind. What could she possibly say that would change anything? Apologies feel meaningless when they come from someone who planned to leave you in the first place. I shove the phone under a pillow and stand, pacing the small room. The walls close in, and I can't shake the memory of her voice that night, calm, detached, utterly indifferent. A mistake. That word echoes like a drumbeat in my mind. The knock on the door is soft, hesitant. Ethan? My mom's voice comes through, muffled but warm. I open the door, and she steps inside, wearing her robe and slippers, her hair tied back in a loose braid. She looks at me the way only a mother can, with worry tucked behind her eyes. Can't sleep? I shake my head. She motions for me to sit on the bed, and when I do, she takes the chair across from me. She waits, letting the silence settle before speaking. Have you thought about what you're going to do next? I'm filing for divorce. I say flatly, the words foreign on my tongue. She nods slowly. Good. You deserve better than this, Ethan. You know that, right? I nod, but the words don't sink in. It doesn't feel like I deserve anything right now. Her hand rests on mine briefly, a small gesture of comfort. Your dad and I are here for you, no matter what. And if you need to talk, we're ready to listen. Thanks, I murmur. After she leaves, I sit on the bed for what feels like hours, staring at the ceiling again. The quiet is unbearable, but the thought of facing anyone else, even my closest friends, feels worse. The next morning, I finally take the step I've been dreading. The lawyer's office is in a nondescript building downtown. The receptionist greets me with a practiced smile and asks me to fill out a form. My hand shakes as I write my name at the top of the page. When the lawyer comes out to meet me, she's brisk but kind, guiding me to her office with practiced ease. Her desk is immaculate, with a single framed photo of a golden retriever. She offers me a glass of water, which I decline. Let's start from the beginning, she says, pulling out a notepad. The next hour passes in a haze of questions and answers, each one chipping away at the life I thought I had. By the time I leave, I'm holding a folder of paperwork and a list of next steps. It feels heavier than it should, like it's carrying the weight of everything I've lost. Outside, the sun glares down, mocking me with its brightness. People bustle around, going about their lives as if the world hasn't shifted on its axis. I sit in the car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, before finally heading home. Back at my parents' house, the folder lands on the desk in my room with a thud. I collapse onto the bed, the exhaustion finally catching up to me. It's not until later that night, when the house is dark and quiet, that I allow myself to cry. The tears come suddenly, hot and unrelenting, soaking the pillow beneath me. For the first time in days, I don't try to stop them. Letting it out feels like relief and pain rolled into one, a strange mix of release and agony. But as the tears subside, I find a tiny sliver of clarity, a faint voice in the back of my mind reminding me that this is the beginning of something new. Not the life I plan, but maybe, just maybe, something better. A week has passed since I filed for divorce. 7 days of navigating a life I never saw coming. The world keeps moving, indifferent to my chaos, but I've found small anchors to keep me steady: therapy, family dinners, long walks to nowhere. The therapy sessions are strange, at least at first. Dr. Harper is a middle-aged man with a salt and pepper beard and a voice that never wavers. He asks open-ended questions, the kind designed to pull answers from the deepest corners of your mind. It's uncomfortable, but I keep showing up. Today, I sit across from him, hands clenched in my lap, as he leans forward slightly in his chair. "Ethan, have you been able to process what Lily's betrayal means to you?" I hesitate. "It means she didn't care," I say finally, the words heavy and blunt. He nods, not offering any platitudes. "And how has that affected your sense of trust?" Trust. The word feels foreign now, a relic of a life I don't recognize anymore. I tell him about the nightmares, flashes of her with him, of her calm, detached voice cutting through my chest like a blade. I tell him how I can't seem to turn off the endless loop of questions in my head. Why wasn't I enough? When did she decide I wasn't worth it? Dr. Harper listens without interruption. When I finish, he says, "Ethan, healing from betrayal isn't about finding answers to those questions. It's about learning to let go of the need for them." Letting go. Easier said than done. After the session, I stop by a small cafe on the way home. It's one of those places I used to visit with Lily, but I've decided it's mine now. I order a black coffee and sit by the window, watching people pass by. Couples walk hand in hand, parents chase after toddlers, and for the first time in days, I don't feel the need to look away. Later that evening, I force myself to open the folder of divorce paperwork. The sight of her name next to mine stings, but I push through it. Step by step, I work through the forms, signing where necessary and making notes where I have questions. My dad peeks into the room at one point, holding 2 glasses of iced tea. "Need a break?" he asks. I nod, grateful for the distraction. We sit on the back porch, the cool evening air a welcome contrast to the heat of the day. He doesn't press me to talk, but eventually I find myself saying, "I feel like I failed." He looks at me, his expression thoughtful. "You didn't fail, Ethan. She did. Marriage is a partnership, and she broke it." His words settle into the cracks inside me, not quite filling them but making them less jagged. The next morning, I decide it's time to reclaim more of my life. I log onto social media, something I've been avoiding since this all began, and start unfollowing Lily's accounts. It's a small act, but it feels monumental. I even text a couple of friends I haven't seen since the wedding. Nothing heavy, just casual invitations to catch up. Their responses are immediate and enthusiastic, and for the first time in weeks, I feel a spark of something like hope. The first meetup is awkward at first. Josh and Jake don't push me to explain everything, but I can see the questions in their eyes. Over burgers and fries at our favorite diner, I give them the briefest version of the story. She cheated. I'm filing for divorce. Josh shakes his head. What a mess. But hey, you're better off, man. Seriously. Jake nods in agreement, clapping me on the shoulder. You'll get through this, Ethan. One day at a time. Their words are simple, but they remind me that I'm not alone in this. That night, as I lie in bed, I realize something has shifted. The pain is still there, sharp and insistent, but it's not all-consuming anymore. There's space for other things now: friendship, family, and the faintest glimmers of a future I'm slowly starting to believe in. Section 4. Confronting the Remnants. 2 weeks have passed since I walked away from the wreckage of my marriage. The divorce is moving forward, but the process feels like pulling barbed wire from my chest, painful, slow, and never-ending. Every email from my lawyer is another reminder of what I lost, or maybe what I never really had. I'm learning to compartmentalize, to pack the pain into corners of my mind where it won't seep into every moment of my day. Therapy helps. So does keeping busy. But some wounds refuse to stay hidden. This morning, my phone buzzes with a text from Lily. It's the first time I've heard from her since I moved out. Can we talk? The words hang on the screen like a storm cloud. My first instinct is to ignore her, but curiosity wins out. I reply, "What do you want?" Her response comes quickly. Closure. I agree to meet her at a coffee shop near her new apartment. As I sit waiting, sipping a latte I don't want, I brace myself for whatever she's about to say. When she walks in, it's like seeing a stranger wearing her face. She's dressed sharply, makeup flawless, but there's a hollow look in her eyes that wasn't there before. "Ethan," she says, sliding into the chair across from me. "Lily." My voice is flat, careful. She takes a deep breath, folding her hands on the table. "I wanted to apologize. For everything." Her words are measured, rehearsed. I sit back, crossing my arms. "Apologizing for cheating, or for wasting my time?" She flinches but recovers quickly. "For cheating. For lying. I don't have an excuse, Ethan. I just messed up." I let her words hang in the air, heavy and insubstantial at the same time. "You didn't just mess up, Lily. You planned to leave. You didn't even try to fix things." Her eyes drop to the table. "I know. And I'm sorry." But the apology doesn't land. It feels hollow, like a broken instrument. I stare at her, waiting for something more, some sign that she's truly sorry. Instead, she shifts in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Is that all you wanted to say?" I ask, my tone sharp. She nods, then shakes her head. I hope we can both move on. I hope you can be happy." It sounds like something she read in a self-help book. I stand up, sliding my chair back with a scrape. "I will be. Without you." Her face falls, but I don't stay to watch. As I walk out of the cafe, the weight I've been carrying feels lighter, like shedding an old coat that no longer fits. Later that day, I tell Dr. Harper about the meeting. He listens, nodding thoughtfully as I recount the conversation. "How do you feel about her apology?" he asks. "Unimpressed," I admit. "She didn't mean it. She wanted to ease her guilt, not help me." He leans forward slightly. "And do you need her apology to heal?" The question catches me off guard. I think about it for a long moment before shaking my head. No. I don't. That evening, I go through the last of the boxes from our apartment. Most of it is junk, old receipts, mismatched socks, a few photos I can't bring myself to look at yet. But I find a journal I started in college, back when everything felt simpler. Flipping through the pages, I see entries full of plans and dreams, none of which included someone like Lily. I grab a pen and start a new page. The words flow out easily, not about her but about me, what I want, where I'm going, who I'm becoming. The past 2 weeks have been brutal, but I'm still standing. Stronger, clearer, and ready to face whatever comes next. 2 months after filing for divorce, life feels less like a battle and more like a quiet rebuild. The wounds are still there, but they don't bleed as often. There's a rhythm to my days now: work, therapy, reconnecting with friends and family, piecing myself back together one moment at a time. I've started running again, something I gave up during the short, chaotic stretch of my marriage. There's a trail near my parents' house, lined with tall oaks and dotted with patches of sunlight. The pounding of my feet on the dirt, the steady pull of my breath, it grounds me, reminds me that I'm alive, moving forward. Today, I run farther than I have in years, pushing through the burn in my legs until I reach the top of the hill overlooking the town. The view isn't spectacular, but it's mine. I stand there for a moment, hands on my hips, feeling, embracing, the quiet satisfaction of progress. When I get home, my mom is in the kitchen, humming as she stirs a pot of soup. She glances over her shoulder and smiles. "You're looking better, Ethan." "Thanks, Mom." I grab a glass of water and sit at the table. She doesn't pry, doesn't ask how I'm doing, but her presence is steady, comforting. Later that night, I have dinner with Josh and Jake. It's the first time I've laughed, really laughed, in weeks. The kind of laughter that makes your stomach ache, the kind that reminds you life can still be good. Man, you're bouncing back fast, Jake says, raising his beer. Trying to, I reply. I'm not there yet, but I will be. As the night winds down, Josh pulls me aside. You ever think about what's next? Like once the divorce is finalized? The question lingers in my mind as I drive home. What is next? I don't have a clear answer, but for the first time, I'm okay with that. The next morning, I wake up early and sit at my desk with a fresh journal. This one isn't for rehashing the past, it's for charting the future. I start small, goals for the week, things I want to try, places I want to visit. Therapy has taught me to focus on the present, to take life one day at a time. But it's also given me permission to dream again. By the end of the week, the divorce papers are finalized. The weight of that chapter closes, but I don't feel the crushing grief I expected. Instead, there's relief, a quiet, steady relief that settles in my chest. I take the papers to my dad's workshop that evening. He hands me a lighter without asking why I'm there. Together, we burn the copies in his old fire pit, watching the flames consume the remnants of what was. It's not the end, Ethan, he says as we watch the embers fade. It's the beginning of something better. And for the first time, I believe him.